I believe my body speaking to me from the age of 18, which is I struggled to orgasm in sex. It's the first time I ever had sex, 18, it didn't happen. And I was just like, okay, like, you know, and then it didn't happen. And it just was this ongoing pattern that I didn't think kind of too much of it. You know, actually, like, it actually fitted in a lot to the kind of kudos that I was trying to create in terms of being a man and, you know, putting in a performance and getting pats on the back. In my mid-20s, at sort of, let's say, the height of being lost, would like sleeping with another girl made me feel proud of myself. And there definitely was a part of me that'd be like, well, yeah, it would actually. Like, I'd get loads of pats on the back. People would go, yeah, Ben's doing his thing. And like, yeah, you know, I feel more of a man and all this. Like, I do feel more proud. But really, like, forgetting all the kudos, forgetting all the external stuff, when you stand in front of yourself and look at yourself in the mirror, and you look, is this how I want to live my life? Is that really, like, am I really proud of that experience?
On today's episode, Ben Bidwell, human potential coach and breathwork practitioner. Ben, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure.
To paint a picture for the audience, you're a renowned human potential coach, a breathwork specialist, and a speaker. And you often speak on authenticity, true masculinity, power of vulnerability, and heart-led leadership, amongst other things. Up until your early 30s, you led a conventionally nice and successful life, or so it looked for the people from the outside. And then everything changed for you. Walk me through your life from before and tell me why things had to change for you.
Yeah, wow, thank you. God, like the first thing I feel like I need to share is that I did live this life. I did tick these boxes. It did look great, and you know, obviously it wasn't perfect, but it was pretty good. And it did feel that way to me. Like I was there just thinking, hey, do you know what? This is good. I'm doing well. And I felt like there was something missing, but I felt that was just ambition. I felt like I was just an ambitious guy, and I needed, you know, I was just on the path to needing more. And that's what my little itch was of like, something's not quite right. And so it didn't, there wasn't a part of me that's like, I'm on the wrong path here or anything like that. I just didn't know. It was only when I started working with someone who started showing me who I really was that I started to see, oh, actually these things that I'm doing, they're never going to fulfill me. And I can be as ambitious as I want and I can achieve all of them, and they're never going to get me.
So I guess from that perspective, something had to happen for you to actually seek a life coach. So what was that, this is it moment for you?
Yeah, so the this is it experience was I believe my body speaking to me from the age of 18, which is I struggled to orgasm in sex. It's the first time I ever had sex, 18, it didn't happen. And I was just like, okay, like, you know, and then it didn't happen. And it just was this ongoing pattern that, and I didn't think kind of too much of it. You know, actually, like, it actually fitted in a lot to the kind of kudos that I was trying to create in terms of being a man and, you know, putting in a performance and getting pats on the back and, you know, and all that kind of stuff.
So pleasing the partner rather than taking care of yourself.
Completely.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's this kind of stigma with men, isn't it? It's that, like, if you come really quickly, it's kind of like, that's a pretty bad thing. Whereas mine, probably this protective field of like, well, I'm not going to do that bad thing. I'm going to be so far the other way and I'm going to hold on and all part of the armor. And that's kind of how I see it. But I think the deeper truth is that I completely desensitized my emotions and my whole experience, and my body was like, well, if you're not going to feel, then you're going to struggle to feel this too.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so did you actually, were you trying to at some point actually, you know, finish or not really?
Yeah, I was,
but you couldn't.
Like, in my mind, I was like, look, I'm open. I'm so like there. It's just unconsciously, I was like holding on for dear life and completely numb. So like just desensitized, not actually experiencing anything, which is like my experience of life as well, by the way, at that point.
Wow.
I just was numb to the whole thing.
Today's episode is brought to you by Momo Kombucha. If like me, you like to be healthy and enjoy life at the same time, Momo could be a great addition to your diet. Tangy and sweet, fizzy and refreshing, it's also really good for your gut. Momo is a natural unfiltered kombucha, which means it's a fermented drink low in sugar and naturally contains probiotics and healthy organic acids. It's also full of antioxidants and acetic acid, which boosts your energy and lowers your blood sugar levels. I like to have mine on empty stomach or in the evening as a mocktail. Let me know which flavor you like best and use a discount code ISTHISIT15 to get a 15% off of your first order.
And so at some point you just realize, okay, well, that's probably not normal. What can I do about this? Or how was it for you?
I got to the age of 30 and I was like, do you know what? And it impacted a few relationships along the way.
And throughout the whole time it was the case?
Yeah, it's just that was the way. Yeah, completely.
Wow.
That was my experience, yeah.
Sorry, you can cut me off anytime if I'm asking too many questions or they're too detailed, but what were your partners saying? Were they okay with that? Because I can imagine, like, for a woman, it's also very stressful to see that a man does not, finish, because then they're probably asking themselves, well, is something wrong with me?
Yeah, the reactions of some were like completely different. From some, they were like, they took it quite personally and they're like, is it me? What's going on? And so often what I learned, I started to share it. If it felt like we're getting to an intimate situation, then I'd say, by the way, this is often my experience. It's like, if it happens, that's just how it is. It's me. Other times, like, people would be like, I'm totally cool with that. Like, let's go, like, getting crude, But I can totally understand. It's there's so much we want to please. We want to know our partner is satisfied in that. But it also impacted in relationship, where I think it really impacted my drive. I remember this, I feel bad every time I say it, but I had this experience in relationship when I was about 21, 22, my first sort of proper, like, loving relationship. And we'd been together for quite a long time, and I think she was like, what's going on? Like, sexually, like, you're not, like, kind of onto me like perhaps my other partners have been. And I'm just saying, like, well, for me, like, sex sometimes can just feel like going for a run. It's like a lot of exercise, and I don't really get the good bit at the end. I'm like, it's just it's energetic. I'm knackered, and so I'm not drawn to it in quite the same way. And that, I think, was the hard part to take in relationship, because they want to feel, and I've learned this, they want to feel like ravished is the word. They want to feel like their man is, stimulated, attracted, wanted. Yeah. Exactly. So that was the hard part, I think, in relationship.
You mentioned, I saw in some of your early interviews, something about ejaculation retention, or was it referring to energy somehow, or energy cultivation, or was it different?
In terms of that was something I was seeking?
Yeah.
At
that time, no, but
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Now I learn, and actually, so I started working with some sex coaches and stuff, thinking that I just, learn new tricks and stuff. I didn't realize this was an inward experience, but, and they were like, this is, most men, it's really hard to retain ejaculation. It's such a powerful life force that actually you're in a really good starting place. And I could just never see that. I didn't want any of that. I just wanted the ejaculation, but I just wanted the good time at the beginning. It's only now that I started to see, actually, it's quite good that I'm not in a place where I'm just ejaculating all the time, I guess.
So I guess for the audience that's not familiar, this is also something that I don't know too much about, but from what you've said also, my understanding is that if you retain that energy and you don't actually ejaculate, then you have, more clarity, more energy to put it into, I don't know, your projects, whatever it is. So is that how it works? Have you experienced it now? Have you delved a little bit deeper into that?
It's an area that I'm continuing to expand in, and I'm fascinated by it. But yeah, I kind of take it for granted, if I'm honest with you. I see so often that men talk about this creativity, this life force that you keep within you. It literally is life force. So if you're continually putting it outside of you, then what are you left with within? And so I guess I'm kind of, because I'm still on the journey. I'm still learning. There's a lot of work for me to continue to do around sex. My experience of it, I had such a long time of negative experiences with it, if you like, not to make it good or bad, but it was a drain on my energy, put it that way. Just my whole experience of sex in many ways. So I'm still working on that, but I am of the awareness that it's definitely not a bad thing to keep semen retention, and there's a lot of benefits to it.
I mean, this is maybe I'm just literally brainstorming out loud, but we know statistics of women that actually do come and that don't. So does that mean that they have this advantage of just having more energy in life force because they don't get to do it?
I think it's slightly different for men, because we are actually, I mean, obviously there can be female ejaculation, but I think, generally it's what is contained within male ejaculation, I think, is a lot of energy.
Got it.
And when we let go of that consistently, we're depriving ourselves of what ultimately comes back to life force. So I don't think it's quite the same in that way, energetically.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to you. You mentioned that you beforehand were living a life of unconscious toxic behaviors. I'm curious about what those were.
Yeah, like competition, dominance, like need to be as the best if I could. Glorifying moments of like pleasure, happiness, quick wins, stimulation, women, parties, all the stuff that the world like shows us that. I mean, I grew up in the 80s seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Terminator, Rambo, James Bond. This was my, absolutely, they got the girls, they won everything they did. They were never kind of sad or depressed or low or...
that we knew of.
That we knew of on film, right? Right. But that was what was presented to us. And so I went all in because I have no sense of validation within myself. I went all in on trying to get everyone else's validation. I had no idea I was doing that at the time, obviously,
I feel like this is so unspoken of and unthought of, but we literally are the products of everything that we have been consuming for decades. And it's the subliminal messaging, and it's the cartoons, and then it's the teen shows, and then it's the movies, and then it's, the billboards and everything else. So nobody can really blame you for acting that way because those were the role models of that time. So I guess these days I have a lot of questions from my audience, from men, and they always ask, what is toxic masculinity? Everybody talks about it. It's not really clear what it is. So do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, no, it would be an opinion because I don't know if we can objectively say what is. Maybe we can.
I also don't think so, but at least in the common knowledge, because I'm even confused. I mean, is it like the Andrew Tate, or is it not being vulnerable? Like what's the spectrum?
I think it's all wrapped up in that, yeah. And I would say that dominance is at the root of toxic behaviours in terms of competition and needing to be the best and seeking external validation and basing our existence on our results and what we do and what we achieve, and all of that stuff is the kind of is at the root of it. A space that I was caught up in all the way, and I think the space that men are taught. Now obviously there's like a range of that. Some of it could be more toxic than others if we're still we have a very competitive, determined side of us, but we are also very respectful and understanding of other people's experiences too. Then not to say all dominance or competition is bad, but it's just when we're caught and stuck in going all in on that without a balance of being human too, then we can be out of kilter, and it can lead into like toxic environments where it's all about us and we have no sense of what I would now describe as like love and connection for the human species, the collective, if you like.
Yeah. And
that I think is toxic. We're driving, we aren't meant to be divisive. We aren't meant to be separated in that form. It's not meant to be me against you. That isn't in our heart. I think that's in our greed, in our ego. And that is when we get stuck in that place, that's where it's toxic.
Yeah, I think beforehand, again, in all the movies and the culture, everything was very black or white. So women have to be like that, men have to be like that. Being a woman means that, being a man means that. And now I think as we're evolving as a society in a good direction, for sure, objectively, anyone contesting this, I do not agree. It just seems that we're becoming more and more comfortable with accepting that there's a huge spectrum of emotions between, tough and weak, and so many shades and colors of each of those, even those kind of extremes. And I think we're becoming more and more comfortable with actually it's normal and it's good to be very widespread on that spectrum and be able to possess different qualities and behave in different ways depending on the situation. Not easy though.
Not easy, no. And that's where we remain stuck, I think. Because it isn't easy, but I'm so with you. We do, like, if I didn't seek some kind of competition, I wouldn't get the best out of myself. And at the same time, if I'm so competitive that I don't actually enjoy the experience at all and it's based on results and I'm just going competition to competition to competition, am I actually living or experiencing life? And it's, so there is a, and that's why I think it's so hard to definitively define all of this stuff, because I don't think we can sit here and say that it is really bad to be in competition, or it is really bad to have a drive to want to achieve.
I guess we can say for sure that it's quite bad to be stuck in one end, or one emotion, one end of the spectrum, or one emotion, and one idea of how you should be, because then by definition you're very restricted and you don't have the space to move in the direction that the situation requires.
Totally. And this is why I love the archetype work, the looking at the masculine archetypes, because I think men are very caught up in wanting and thinking that they need to be a warrior, and that's how they will thrive. And maybe I'm just projecting my own experience, but I think it's quite visible in this world that we think life will be a success if we dominate and we achieve, and it's all based on these this warrior archetype of achievement and doing, when actually that is just one part of who we are. And I love the concept. It was so kind of profound and such an expansion of me as a human when I saw that as a man, there is also a lover inside of me, and there is also a magician inside of me. It's only when I step into all aspects of who I can be that I become this perceived king, this best version of who I am as a man. And yeah, most of us, so many men, I mean, I grew up really lacking any sense of connection to the lover and the magician inside of me, because I just didn't see that opportunity in this world. I didn't see that that would help me thrive as a man in embracing those aspects. Now I've learned, if I don't embrace them, then I'm denying a part of who I am, and it will hurt me on the inside.
What helped you most to embrace those parts?
Stopping, listening, getting out of the rigid patterns of thinking, this is who I need to be. There have been so many tools along the way that have kind of given me little insights. I did a men's retreat that was specifically based on the archetypes. So that was really powerful for me to see that full spectrum of me as a man, and to embody, each day we spend a day in that archetype. So allow ourselves to sit as a lover and realise that it feels quite nice, feels amazing to feel seen, to feel connected, to listen, to experience all the nourishment within me, the gratitude, the sensation of life. Felt good, and it was hard to access, but when I did allow myself to do it, it felt good. The same as a magician, to creativity, and to move and learn and grow and not be stuck in this is who I am, I'm just going to get it done and make the most of who I am, that kind of warrior sense. So it just felt expansive and beautiful. But loads of other tools along the way. Breath work, as you know, has been a beautiful tool for me. And when I first did breath work, I had this sense of just the mind stopping, telling me who I was, and I could just feel into actually who I was. And that felt a deeper truth than what my mind was telling me. And that was a beautiful tool to learn from there. So there are all these different parts, and it goes on, and I'm still expanding, and there's still so much for me that I haven't yet uncovered.
The wisdom is locked within us. It's up to us to unlock it.
And that is it.
Definitely.
That's it.
So between the different modalities, you mentioned that you started with a life coach initially.
Yeah.
How has coaching changed your life?
Well, they just let me see beyond my own mind, beyond my own limitations, beyond my own sort of rigid patterns of who I was. It stopped me being stuck, because actually suddenly now someone was kind of questioning, really, you sure? Is that really, is that definitely what? And you're how does she know that about me? How does she know that that's not really it? And she just sort of seemed to know. And I get it now. But yeah, someone asking you those questions allows you to see yourself in a different way, a way that you really are, rather than the way that you've conditioned yourself to see.
Yeah. It's so useful. I mean, I've had coaches, I'm coaching people as well, and it's just that undivided attention and intention from that person in front of you to be there for you, to hold space for you without any judgment, and to help you untangle your own mind and your own emotions.
Yeah. It's
everyone has blind spots. You can't do it on your own. You can, but it will just take so much longer. You'll bump into things, you'll hit your hand, you'll be like, oh, that hurts. Wait, why did this happen? And then if you're that way inclined, some people just keep hitting, just keep hitting.
Yeah.
So I asked that because it's been definitely very beneficial for me as well. And I read that you did hypnotherapy. as well?
Yeah. So the first life coach I worked with was a hypnotherapist. Yeah.
How did that work for you? How
Well,
what
you know,
impact did
I
it
think
have?
I was so closed. I just wasn't open. I was kind of expecting to do this hypnotherapy and some things would change. I didn't have the depth of awareness to understand this is like an ongoing like work on for communication with my subconscious that would alter me in ways that wouldn't logically make sense to me. And I was so rational and logical at that point, I just couldn't, I wanted the instant results. So actually how it happened is that we'd be doing hypnotherapy and then at the end she'd kind of speak to me and we piece things together. And I was like, can we do more of that? Like when we spoke about that stuff, that was really interesting. And so she'd be like, sure, we don't have to do the hypnotherapy. We can just piece this together here if you want to. And I was like, yeah, can we do that? And so actually, I just don't think I was ready and open for the hypnotherapy at that point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a deep experience. I've tried that as well.
Yeah. Right.
Honestly, I think all of these modalities, the more you try, it just adds a little piece of the puzzle for you, and you try kind of different layers of self-help, and they all help, whether you know it or not, whether you feel it immediately or not, but it opens your mind, I think.
Yeah.
Some way or the other.
And I think they're all right for us in different, not all right all times, but hypnotherapy wasn't right for me at that point. It might be exactly what I need right now, where I'm at in this part of the journey. At the same time, you know, everything. So I think we have to be open. I think we can get a bit fixated on like, this is going to be it. This is going to save me. This will change everything. And it's like, that might be right for you right now, but something else might be the right thing for you at the next point. Very
true. Have to remain flexible and very fluid.
Yeah.
And have the feelers in the moment always, and check in with yourself. I think that's the one. Even for myself, we were saying this off camera. It's just you have this goal, and then you start going there, and then things change along that way. Things just change. You have to do those check-ins often and see, okay, well, it's been 6 months, it's been a year since I set out to do this thing or become this person or get this project. And yeah, just check the reality, right? Because you might be already veered off the course or some adjustments to the goal might be needed. But yeah, it's that awareness and that good habit of doing the check-in with yourself, like both emotionally and intellectually, and like as a whole plan, I think is really important.
Yeah, and how many of us would never even do that? I mean, I did not do that for 30 years of my life. You know, I did not consider what I didn't know how to consider. I didn't know where the answers lay. I just was like, well, I'm just going with what feels good. And it was kind of confusing because sometimes what things felt good actually then felt bad. And I was like, well, what does that mean? I remember that people would say, like, if you want to know what your purpose is, look at your bank statement and look at what you're spending your money on. That will show you where your energy is. And I was like, well, so is my purpose in nightclubs and bars? Because it doesn't feel like that's my purpose, but is that what I'm meant to be doing? Should I be trying to run parties and stuff, which I absolutely never should have been doing? But it's confusing along the way. It's really confusing.
I love that you touched on this subject, which is my favorite question to ask. What would you say, if you know, what would you say is your purpose?
My purpose is to live, right now, what I'd say is my purpose is to live in my heart as much as I possibly can. Because ultimately for me, my heart is my truth. So to live as true as I can, and like you're saying, that's changing. That's depending on where I'm at. But so for right now, is to tune into what is most deeply true for me and to live to that place. And that's not always easy. That's not like, that often is having the hard conversation. It's doing the hard thing. It's walking away from something that feels good but isn't the deepest sense of where you want to get to. Or it's, letting go of something that is really comfortable, but deeply within you, it's not the most true thing. It's not the most purposeful thing. So that is my purpose. That's like the ongoing purpose. What that means along the way is always changing. Yeah.
What would you say is the price of living without purpose?
Emptiness, which is my experience for 30 years. Really, there's a knowing inside of us that can feel when we're on purpose, when we're meant to be doing this, when we're living authentically, when we are living in a liberated way. And there's a sense of something's missing when we're not. And I think the challenge that we have in this world, speaking from my experience, that sense of something's missing, we often get confused with our ambition, or like needing more, or going after something bigger, better. And the truth is that was never actually our purpose. That is like giving us temporary hits of excitement, of happiness, but it's never our purpose. And so like understanding which things really are filling us up and tuning into those things, even again, if they're hard. I often give this example of, I remember getting an email from a prison psychotherapist who reached out and said, I read something that you wrote about, and would you be happy to come and speak to the prisoners of Pentonville Prison about this? And part of me, really active, really loud, was like, absolutely not, way too scary, like it's just a no, like I don't want to be entering into that kind of space. At the same time, I could also feel this sense within me, it's like this, like, yes, this is absolutely what you're here to be doing, to be putting yourself in those situations. And I was able to just see that that was just fear saying no, and that there was a deeper truth that this was really part of my mission, part of my purpose. And so I was able to, through gritted teeth, sit and reply to the email saying, thank you so much, bloody hell. When do you want me, kind of thing.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, like I'm ready.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting on the train, going there and thinking, what am I doing? I could be on the sofa, I could be relaxing. Why am I doing this? This feels so uncomfortable. Does that mean I'm not meant to be doing it? But that purpose lives beneath that. It's like there's a knowing, it's like something is saying yes, you know? And that, I think so many of us disconnect to that part in just chasing what feels comfortable at the time, that we miss our purpose.
Thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you for explaining it so well. I liked how you touched upon the fact that it doesn't actually feel comfortable. It feels maybe scary, and it feels very uncomfortable, and it feels definitely out of your comfort zone. Nonetheless, that's the thing you're meant to do, and that's your purpose. So how can people discern? Is it just that gut feeling? And how does that gut feeling feel for someone that's maybe listening and does not know how to spot it?
It's hard, right? Because I think our gut feeling, my interpretation of it is that we can be so disconnected to our gut, or we can be so wrapped up in our fear that it's almost like that has gone so deep into us that it feels like our gut as well. If we're so, that is my experience of it. It can feel like an absolutely no in every sense of the word. And we can be like, there's no bit of me that's connected to this. But it's like, well, actually, are you really allowing yourself to go deep enough to find that yes? And so I think it is really, really hard. And ultimately, it's got to come back to my lesson, my way of learning is that I always look at this sense of what makes me feel proud, or what would make me respect myself. What's the answer to that? Would I feel proud doing that? And if I was wriggling, it could be like, well, yeah, I feel proud, but there's so many no's. It's like no. If it will make you feel proud, there's a part of you that is longing for that. Proud, like that sense of pride is it's like a deeper knowing for me.
Does pride not go too hand in hand with ego?
Not for me, but I think there is that interpretation, and I know for some people there is resistance around pride in that sense. So that's where I say also, ought it make you respect yourself? Maybe that adds a different slant, because maybe you can see it in a different way there. Because I know words are subjective, right? And
yeah, very important though.
Yeah.
How many occasions I keep having all the time where we're trying to say the same thing, but because we're using different words, it's not really coming across. That's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
But just recently I was speaking to a dear friend, and she was saying exactly this. She's doing this exercise where she's asking herself, is this thing going to raise my self-worth in my eyes? And that's it. And that's a great compass. I found that as well.
And I really get the challenge of that, because I'm just, as you're saying this, I'm thinking, well, in my mid-20s, at sort of, let's say, the height of being lost, would like sleeping with another girl made me feel proud of myself? And there definitely was a part of me that'd be like, well, yeah, it would actually. Like, I'd get loads of pats on the back. People would go, yeah, Ben's doing his thing. And like, yeah, you know, I feel more of a man and all this. Like, I do feel more proud. But I wasn't going deep enough. Like, really, like, I was taking the surface level understanding. It's like, yes, but it's like, no, but really, like, forgetting all the kudos, forgetting all the external stuff, when you stand in front of yourself and look at yourself in the mirror and you look, is this how I want to live my life? Is that really like, am I really proud of that experience? I think I would have found no. Like, it was fun for a moment, but that's not
in alignment with
yeah.
your purpose and who you ultimately want to be.
Yeah, but I had to dig deep to get to that.
So I want to ask you, just again, to make it very tangible for people listening, to bring it back to their own life. So what was the feeling, like the sensation of your life before you kind of uncovered this purposeful life, and after, now that you're presumably living it? So the difference in how you feel day to day.
Yeah, so my old life was very much like a curve of like how I felt, just sat on the sofa, nothing going on. I felt pretty empty. I was like, I don't feel stimulated. I don't feel proud. I don't feel on purpose. I don't feel like I'm living my true existence. I'm just, however, so from that place of like feeling quite empty, I would go and chase something. And then I'd go to the party, I'd get drunk, I'd go and do the thing. Now I feel alive. This feels really good. Yeah, okay, this is great. Now I feel this is how it's meant to be. Then that would finish, and then the next day I'd go crashing back down to like, okay, I need to do something again now to feel alive again. Because without the doing something, how I felt just in that existence was empty, right? I mean, not completely empty, but just a bit purposeless, a bit kind of numb, like, there's got to be more to this. So I was just chasing, there was that light. I had to have something to make me feel something. Whereas now it's a sense of my intention is to feel great, or let's say good, just on purpose, to feel good about life. Like, yeah, I feel on track, I feel on purpose, I feel alive, I feel something negatively might be happening in the short term. I might be having a challenge here or here, but ultimately my life is on purpose and I feel like I'm showing up and being the person that I want to be. And then from that place, yeah, sure, I might have some highs. I might still go to a party. I might still have some fun. I might buy something that just gives me that hit, but I'm not coming crashing back down to a place of like emptiness and a lack of purpose again. And so I can make more conscious choices from that place because I'm steady. And I'm like, yeah, it feels good. I don't need that. In the past, I needed to do something to take me away from the emptiness.
To feel something.
To feel something. Now it's like, not to say I've got it all figured out, I've got it perfect, because I think that would be an entirely wrong thing to say, but my starting place is much better so that I do feel good without doing anything.
So what I'm hearing is that you made your baseline be the sole fact of being in alignment with who you are and living according to how you really feel. Like, it's just authenticity, the path of authenticity, and just exploring and accepting that who you are is okay, and that's it's just a journey.
Yes.
And because you do that and you constantly also check in with yourself, like, would this make me proud? Is this who I want to be? Then you keep yourself on that track of living on purpose, which is living through your heart.
Yes. Exactly.
So whatever else, that conventionally we can brand as a dopamine hit is okay. It's just like an occasional spike to an already good baseline of feeling in your life.
And then I can make a more conscious decision towards that dopamine hit because I don't need it. And I think that was the part before I felt so empty without something. And I'm describing an addict here, basically, by the way. I was, without it, I felt empty. And I wasn't an addict. We're all addicts in some capacity, but I managed to fit in with society's perception of what was acceptable addict. But yeah, so it was, I'm still in for having a good, life offers so many beautiful things, and I don't want to deny and say no, but.
Yeah, of course, but it's what place is it coming from?
Exactly.
Is it coming from a place of absolute, need or else?
Yes.
Or is it, okay, well, let me explore what life has to offer because it's beautiful.
Yes.
And why not? Rather than, okay, if I don't do this, I'm going to be depressed.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
Yeah, completely.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about your career shift. So you realized, okay, what you were doing was not quite right. Then for a year, you undergone this coaching, hypnotherapy, and then you decided to become a coach yourself?
Yeah, I didn't. Well, do you know what? I didn't initially. I was like, I'm going to train in this coaching because I feel really drawn to it. And I was like, if I've changed, I feel anyone can, because I was so stuck, so rigid, so lost, that if I've gone on this path, anyone can. I really believe that. So I wanted to get the training, but I didn't know what to do with it. So I went and got the training at like 31 and then just sat with it. And I ran a company for a while, started my own company. And knowing that my life skills and learning about myself and would help me in running a business anyhow. But I did that, and then when that got to a place where it was just really uncomfortable.
Why?
Because I felt so reliant on other people in that business. It was a tech company and I wasn't technical, and I had tech partners, and I just couldn't do the work that I needed them to do. So I felt, that's when I started to experience anxiety, where I felt like what I was putting so much into was out of my hands. And then it's at that point where I wanted to regain control of my life, in the sense that I didn't need someone else to do anything for me to feel like I was moving forward, that I then picked up the coaching at like 35 and was like, okay, now let's look at taking that control, and now I've got that as well. So that's been my journey from that point. And pretty soon as I went into that, I was like, okay, this is really deeply fulfilling me. This is like just a constant headache in my life. I was in the tech stuff really for a financial gain.
Yeah.
There was no sense of purpose to it. And then this felt so purposeful, the coaching aspect. And I felt like it was really like part of my journey and where I was going, that it was like, how can I go back to something lacking so much purpose? So I just had to reach a point where I was like, okay, that's not happening anymore. This is my life.
Okay, well, I love that. And how did it go from there? Because anyone that's a coach listening, they know that it's not that straightforward. You don't just, certify or not certify and just, like, you need to find your clients, you need to find your way, your niche, your style. So I want to ask you about that journey.
Yeah, totally. So I am, having worked in tech, I knew that like marketing was like central to our whole experience. And so then moving into coaching, I was like, I need to create some kind of brand. Even at this point, and there's so many coaches now, but at 35, I felt like the world was gravitating, more coaches were coming out. And that's like, I need my thing. And so for me, I looked at what it was that I was representing and what my journey and what I wanted to help people achieve. And it was all about unraveling and letting themselves be seen. And because I protected myself so much of being who I thought I should be, letting go and becoming like naked, open, vulnerable. So my branding was all about, started off, I don't even know if you know this or
I
not.
know.
Oh, you do know. Okay, so I started off as a naked professor, right? And
Why professor?
because at the time Instagram had like all these catchy like names, and it was like the naked coach didn't sound right.
Okay.
It's like,
Yeah.
it just felt like I was kind of, I don't know, it sounded right.
Okay.
But I wasn't a professor. So I turned up to
But you were
things-
naked.
Well, I turn up to these things and people are like, well, you're not naked, and I'm like, yeah, I'm a complete fraud. But yeah, of course I was.
At least you
and I'm
had
not
to
professor.
be naked.
Exactly.
Okay.
But yeah, it was all, so the branding was just like, I'm going to strip myself off, I'm going to let myself be seen. And that was like my hook, that was my catch. That's where it all kind of began for me. So I started off in that place. And at this point, so that was 7 years ago, there weren't very many people, men, talking about vulnerability and being open, expressing emotions and like exposing themselves in that way, letting themselves be seen at that level. It was really, now I look around, there are so many men, and it's great, it's beautiful, and I know there's so much more work to do. But at that point, I didn't see any other men. So there was this really, and it, kind of my brand just really took off at that point. I don't know if it was the naked pictures or the uniqueness, probably more of the naked pictures, I don't know.
Definitely both.
Maybe the combination. But yeah, that was my thing. And then it reached a point where I was just like, do you know what, I don't want to be about naked pictures. I want to be about what I stand for, and that was my hook, but I don't want to be about that part. It's hard.
It's so cool to hear this. And I had this question. I was literally going to ask you, like, aside from a genius marketing technique, it does really align with what you stand for, which is being, I imagine, like, I guess it's because you want to be vulnerable and you want to be authentic and you want to just show people your true self. And so that's just translated into, a physical representation of that is literally, well, what's more true than a naked me,
Yeah.
But definitely very, very genius marketing strategy. So I want to know about the process. Like, was it just, it clicked for you? Did you read a book on marketing? Did you have like somebody advising you on that?
No, it was so funny actually. It was so weird. I guess like the universe does its thing, right? Because around that time when I was struggling in the tech company and I was going into like looking at the coaching aspect and how I could bring that alive, I went on a trip to Yosemite National Park in America, which is the most beautiful place. And I was with a friend of mine, and just the two of us, and we were in this incredible like valley with this beautiful water and waterfall, and just no one was there, and it was like, oh my God. And I think we've been getting some stick from our friends for like all of our cheesy pictures of like in this, and we were like, let's take it to the next level, and let's take our clothes off and just like walk into this valley like with the water, and it just be like nature, like wholesome, and like, you know, we're getting so much stick anyway. We were like, it was just all part of the fun. So we did that, and we got these like just, I don't know, it was just they were fun photos at the end of the day. But of course, like when we then put that up on our Instagram, I had a personal Instagram, and I put that up, there was way more engagement in that than there was just having breakfast, you know?
Yeah.
Whether it's people like abusing us and having a laugh about it, or people going, oh, that's a really beautiful picture, or whatever it was. Yeah. One way or the other, it caught people. So I was just like, that, and I don't know, I just saw this, that matches, that is open, it's vulnerable, I feel like I'm allowing myself to be seen, it's catchy, it's getting attention, so I remember at that point just thinking, that's what I'll try and do. I just need a photographer who's going to like help me bring this alive.
That's really cool. I like that how it started very organically.
Yeah.
And this other thing that you just touched upon is something that I often think about as well. So you said, well, that started that way. It got the traction, it got the eyeballs. And, you know, now I've evolved into something else and I want to take it a different direction. Time and times over, I see that with, you know, celebrities, you know, your Lady Gaga, whatever, starts like that. And then she goes actually into this very melodic, you know, romantic, slow songs. And turns out that's what she's liked all along, you know?
Yeah.
But it seems that everyone, or almost everyone, goes through this path where that is famous to some level, is they think about, okay, what attracts the people? What are people going to react to? What's going to get viral? That sort of thinking. And then later on, they allow themselves to pivot. So is there a way around that? Because I asked that just because I've been thinking about it, it's real talk, guys, about the podcast as well. So I want to definitely help more people and reach more people with my podcast. But I also realized that it's quality content, you know, it's not some sort of like viral, I don't know, whatever things you say for fame. And I'm in a dilemma myself because I'm like, I want to serve more people. Must I go the path where I do some crazy stuff, some stupid things, I don't know, to get the people to be on this wagon and then give them the gift that I want to give them? Like, is that a must? Is that what people always have to go through? I don't know if you have the answer to that, but
I from the bottom of my heart, I genuinely don't think you have to go through that. I think I was trying to cut corners. I do believe, and maybe it's just because I have to believe this, because otherwise it would be soul destroying, but I believe that if you consistently keep showing up, I think the hard part is that we have to consistently do it consistently. And I've got quite a lot of friends who showed up, no one gave a shit, and then eventually something happened, and then everyone started, you know, everyone was on it and everything changed, and that consistency. And I feel like I'm back in that space, because I haven't really grown for a while now, since I'd transitioned away from the eye-catching stuff into actually like the deeper sentiment of what I wanted to be about. And it's really hard. It is really hard, and I have a real thing about Instagram and how the algorithm works. I think it's promoting this really horrible world of, like you're saying, of like everything has got to be eye-catchy, everything has got to be instant, all the stuff that I think is really harmful. I turn my likes off because I don't think we should be based about likes. I don't know why we need to put a number on that. I think it's really unhealthy. Like teenagers who are looking at this world coming through are thinking it's just normal for them. I know I'm a huge hypocrite in sharing this, but I just take off my clothes and that's how I represent and share myself, and because that's when people like my stuff. And it's just, I think it's created a really unhealthy world. So I don't know. I think consistency is the most underrated thing, but that is the long game. I'm gosh, meanwhile, other people are playing the quick game, short game, and making real progress. And it's quite hard to stay on track, isn't it? To go, I'm going to consistently keep showing up from my truth, and know that it will get seen when it's meant to be seen. 3 years on, 4 years on, 5 years on, we're like, hello, anyone?
Yeah, it's time in the market rather than timing the market, right?
Yeah.
Which is comparable in this case to going viral or actually doing the work for X amount of time. It's funny because always, there's just these celebrities or musicians or actors that all of a sudden you just see everywhere and you're like, oh, overnight success, or like, where did they come from? And then you just look it up and it turns out they were actually doing this thing for 10 years or 5 years and you just didn't know. Because they hadn't reached that breaking point of something or somebody just propelling them and then everybody finding out.
And I do think there is a balance to this. This is where I'm trying to find this healthy balance of showing up from truth whilst also understanding the world we live in and, playing the game to that degree. In the knowing that it's almost like that's the warrior part of me. It's like, we got to get this shit done. Like, it's part of my purpose. It doesn't necessarily align to who I want to be, but it's just a mission that I'm on that serves my greater purpose more deeply. So I go beyond that fear, go beyond the judgment that might be with it, and I get it done. I'm speaking to myself here, by the way. Like, I'm not in that place where I'm actioning it. That's one way that I would hope to be embracing myself. It's hard though, right?
It is. And the way I see it is, how much do you want it? How much do you want to live your purpose and fulfill your mission? So it's not enough to just want to serve people, or in this case, to just, make content that you think is great and you love. You have to also do the work and jump through the hoops to actually, find your people and feed it to them in a way that they'll understand and that will serve them best. And that's, we're talking about a person that's wearing how many hats already? The business hat, the accounting hat, the contracts, the editing, the social media, the SEO, the YouTube, the PR, the events,
It's never ending.
It's never ending. So.
And then another one. Okay.
And then I think what helps me is when I get lost in that and it's just like, well, I need to learn another profession overnight to do this.
I hear you.
And then I think, the thing that helps me is just remembering, why did I even start in the first place? Because it's easy to get lost in the things, in the to-do list, in the, another thing I don't know how to do, and another skill set, how to learn. And when you get deeper in the doing, sometimes you forget and you disconnect to why you started in the first place. Why are you doing this in the first place? So at least what helps me is to reconnect to that and be like, well, you've started because you want to help people and you want to serve them and you want to do it in that way. So, well, maybe how you're doing it now is not enough. And so maybe you need to learn something new or become better at something so that you actually reach them. That picture of the guy that's excavating for diamonds and the one that left an inch before actually reaching it. So I think it's kind of a little bit like that. It's hard.
I find that so hard, that image as well. It's like, well, there's also another image that someone's hacking away for years and years and years and they never find it. And at what point do you say, okay, maybe I'm going down the wrong part of the thing? How do you know? It's so hard. And you might be stopping at that point, maybe rightly or wrongly.
I think there is an answer. I think there's a solution to that one. I think if you have this awareness and understanding, and I know it's been said so many times, but it is true, so I have to repeat it, that you focus on the doing itself, on the process itself. So, okay, in the meanwhile, whilst I'm trying to get to where I am, because I have a goal, am I aware each day and I'm noticing the progress, the growth, the personal growth that I'm undergoing as I'm going on that path? That's valuable. That's infinitely more valuable than anything else that's at the end as described as those diamonds. Because say you never, let's go that direction. Let's say you never get there. At some point you just, 10 years later, you give up on that goal. Well, you're you've become someone else in those 10 years. And with that knowledge and experience and maturity, you can maybe pivot a degree, a different direction, and maybe you'll reach it in 5 days.
Yes.
Whatever the new goal is that's more aligned with who you are, going back to checking in with yourself.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, and I think that like what you say is absolutely like that's it. And but if we're attached to that diamond and our life is based on that diamond, and we're every day chipping away at this path, and we're never reaching the diamond, then life isn't going to feel great, right? But if that is just our destination and we're not attached to it and we're enjoying the excavation process, beautiful, then the diamond just is what is. That's what's going to come out of the excavation that we enjoy anyway. So I think that's where, it's different, right? You're attached to the goal, and does that define you?
Yeah.
Or are you enjoying your process anyway?
That's the one.
Yeah. I don't think I was really enjoying my naked process when I was doing it.
Really?
I think that was part of the problem. It was so hard, like Dana, to orchestrate those images, and the fear that I went through in terms of trying to create them at times. I wasn't here to get arrested or to do anything or to cause offence to anyone or to do that stuff. And so to plan to create that, some of the stuff I was just like, is this really like? I remember getting up at 4:30 in the morning, some mornings just for sunrise, being like, is this what is my life? What is this?
Why am I doing this?
What am I doing?
Why do I have to get naked?
Yeah, like seriously. And I wasn't in love with the process. I was ready to let that go. I was enjoying what it was bringing me, but I don't think I was in love with that process.
I think, if you have that vision, like an overview, like a zoom out, and you overview that, and it's like, okay, what it's giving you and what you're doing, I think in the grand scheme of things, then it's like very easily digestible. It's like, well, okay then.
yeah, totally.
Yeah, but you have to have that, again, that awareness, I think, to appreciate it. Otherwise, it's just like, I really hate doing this.
Yeah.
And you don't link it to the whole picture of, this is it, like, this is my service. This is me becoming, this coach that I want to be and serve X amount of people because of this. So I think if you have that awareness and that connection between those things, then you almost could start appreciating it. Or what do you think?
Yeah, totally. So that is the flip side. Yeah, it's like, am I so connected to where this can take me that it doesn't matter about the noise and the challenge, the short-term challenge that's in this, and the kind of judgment that I'm creating on myself of what this experience is, and actually, I just keep connecting to this is part of where I'm going. It is a weird one, and it is like I've had quite a few people saying, Ben, why did you not continue with that brand? It was like they say, it was marketing genius. Even my mum, I remember I was petrified of telling my mum. I was like, Mum, this is what I'm doing now, and I'm gonna be doing it soon. I just wanted to give you a heads up. And I was like petrified. I remember her looking. I showed her some of the images that I created before they're going out, and I remember her looking at it, going and I was like, this is like a defining moment. If she's like, what the hell are you doing, Ben? You're like embarrassing the family name, or something. I'd be like, what am I going to do then? And I remember her looking at it, and she put on her glasses. She's like, well, Ben, they're so creative, they're incredible. And I remember then after a while, like when I started moving away, it was like I'm sitting there having a conversation with my mum. She's like, perhaps you need to go back to the naked images, to keep growing. And I'm like, I can't believe having this conversation with my mum. It's just, but there is a part of me that's like, I think the bigger part of me, if I'm really honest, the big part of me was like, I want to be, and this is perhaps my limitation, I want to be known for my message and what I stand for and what I'm about, not the naked images. And maybe that just got too far in the way. And I think what I was hoping for is to find a balance, if I'm honest with you, that I could have the messages, but I could still keep alive this element of vulnerability and letting myself be seen and all that stuff. But as I've moved away, I've just lost, there's been no sense of it. Maybe it will come back, Dana. I don't know. Who knows?
Here we are, brainstorming.
Exactly.
If, my 2 cents, I don't think it takes away anything in any way. For example, if you're doing exactly what you're doing right now, and you add on that as an active marketing campaign, I don't think it in any way diminishes you or what you're doing in any way. It's just your way of, getting yourself to the people. Yeah. At least that's how I see it after I've, pondered this topic for a very long time. But, it's going back to what we said before. It's, yes, there's a message, there's a way how you want to do things. But if no one's connecting or watching or listening because they don't know about you, then it's your job also to create that bridge.
Yeah.
But hey,
Yeah.
I'm going to be looking forward to, to your socials. Let's see what happens.
I'm intrigued as to what,
To
where
be
you go
continued.
as well. What happens where? Yeah, it's. I think it's a question on so many people's lips now because everyone is aware when you work for yourself, your brand is so important.
Yeah,
It's essential.
definitely. But I can really strongly understand the predicament that you're in, because it's, I want to be authentic. I don't want to do any sort of gimmicks. I just want to be me and do me. But then it's like, how will people know to come for you and you? Because I am 100% sure that, you know, there's millions of people that would really connect with you and resonate with you and, you know, benefit from you. They just don't know about you.
Yeah.
You know?
But do I really need to put a naked image in front of them for them to realise they
That
resonate
I
with me?
don't know.
That's the bit.
That
you know?
I don't know.
It's so hard, isn't it?
Yeah. I guess, I mean, I was thinking about that as well when you were speaking. Why did it make such a splash, like back in the day? I think, as you said, we need to be aware of the times that we're living in and the society that we're living in. And unfortunately, it is fact that everyone has a very short attention span. Everyone is overfed with images, information. And so, do you stand out?
Completely.
Anyway, we veered off into the marketing and ideology and your true purpose, but
I'm
that
sure
is what the podcast is about. Yeah,
anyone who works for themselves will resonate,
Yeah.
right? It's an ongoing thing.
it is. It is.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch upon another topic, which I know you speak about, which is vulnerability. So, what does true vulnerability really mean?
For me, true vulnerability is just ultimate truth. Ultimate truth. But we live in a society now where we're so scared to share our truth.
Rightfully so, oftentimes.
Yes.
There's repercussions.
Yes, totally. I understand. But I also live in a place where I believe that if I really show up from my heart, really, and I can scrape and I can really get clarity back from the truth of my heart, and I express vulnerably from that place, then I don't need to fear the repercussions, because I know that it's my real truth. And I think that is the work, and that is where, like, the deeper we can get into knowing ourselves, the deeper we can express from that real truth, then the more free and the more liberated we are. But I know that is really hard. And I also understand that there are so many complexities. And I also know that it's so important that we feel safe, and that if we're vulnerable and open in the wrong places,
Yes.
it can hurt us. And I know that there's so much to it, but I keep coming back to this place where if I am truly grounded in myself and connected to my truth, my purpose, and this is absolutely coming from that place, then anyone else's judgment won't actually deeply impact me. And so it is that, you know, vulnerability, I think, is the end result of having done deep work on yourself.
So is vulnerability just being 100% honest about everything you've done and all your deepest, darkest secrets with anyone that you meet? Or that's not what it is really?
I think you know that it's not, right? You're asking me from that place, and it's not. No, because vulnerability is I keep coming back to this place. Vulnerability is what is most deeply true, in my opinion. And what is most deeply true is that we haven't got a sense of connection. We haven't got that level of space where we do just blurt out everything to someone. And like, the deepest truth knows that. We have an innate sense within ourselves when it is right, when we are connected to someone, when we do have space to share openly. Vulnerability is that's why I believe vulnerability comes out from an open, connected heart, where we really know ourselves, we really understand, and we have social awareness, we have emotional intelligence. And we know where our vulnerability can be held and where it can't be held, when it's right to express, when it's not right to express. And that because I totally get what you're saying. I'm not giving a very clear answer here, I think it's very hard to be vulnerable when we don't know ourselves, or when we're still on a journey of self-discovery, or when we haven't yet built an inner confidence within ourselves where we can stand on our own 2 feet and we don't need others' approval. Vulnerability comes out of all of that grounding, because then it's safe. We've created the safety within ourselves to be vulnerable. You can feel when someone is sharing something for attention as opposed to sharing it because it's truth. And I think that is the difference. Vulnerability is when we are standing in our truth without a need for approval or a worry of judgment. It's just what is true for us.
So in a way, people can never demand you to be vulnerable with them.
No.
That can only be voluntary.
Yes.
Natural thing that occurs when you feel safe.
Yes, absolutely. And like, it's really interesting you use the words there in terms of a natural thing. And I do believe it's a natural thing, but I think it's a natural thing that comes out of doing a lot of introspective work, or just living. Some people will just be able to live, fortunate enough to live from this beautiful existence of just being very grounded all of their life. They haven't, and there's always more depth people can uncover, but for the majority of people, we experience some kind of challenges in our life that mean that we become clouded in our understanding of who we are as we put on our mask and put on our armour. And so, for most of us, there is an uncovering process of coming back to who we are. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm just thinking about some cases where people want you to open up when you don't feel that you can, or you want to, or you're ready to.
So two-way thing, right? You have to feel safe enough within yourself, and you have to feel that they're safe enough to be able to hold what it is you're going to express. And most people, I don't think, even at the starting place, build the safety within themselves to be able to express what is true. They can't even go there in the first place. So no one's going to be able to hold it anyway, because they can feel that you don't hold. Well, they might be able to hold it, but they can feel that you're not holding it yourself. You're not able to sit in it comfortably yourself. And then, even then, for some people they are comfortable enough, but then they might express it to someone who really is not, who then uses it against them and then destroys their sense of safety. If they experience that on multiple times, and then they close off themselves because they think if they do express, it's going to come back to haunt them.
Yeah,
which
that's
is
a hard one to go over, because that's a valid experience that someone has gone through.
Completely.
Yeah.
But I believe they can rebuild that.
So what's your practice to do that?
I mean, it's not a daily practice, and there are elements of, there are so many parts to this. So I guess for me, the part that I practiced on a day-to-day basis would be self-care, because I know that when I don't look after myself, then I go more protective into my existence. I close myself off a little bit because I don't feel grounded enough to be open. So at a really simple level, let's say if I'm really tired, I hope people will resonate with this. If I'm really tired, I'd wake up and I wouldn't have the energy necessarily to be able to take it if someone's judging me. I just, it takes energy. All of this stuff requires energy, and I wouldn't have the energy. I'm just too tired. I'm like, okay, just, whatever, kind of go into that space. So self-care for me is just continuing to put the basic platforms in place so that I can stand up and feel alive enough and energetic enough to keep living my truth and to keep expressing myself. So I need to look after myself. If I eat shit foods, then energetically I'm struggling. If I don't get enough sleep, energetically I'm struggling. If I don't get enough time and space to myself, then I'll start to get edgy or, uncomfortable or whatever. It's all these things. If I don't exercise,
everything ties in together.
Everything ties in.
100%.
Completely. Yeah. So that's my practice. It's self-care in that sense. But that's after years of going within myself and learning who it is I really am. Like, most people can't be who they really are because they don't know who they really are. So that takes a lot to start to understand who you are. Then it takes a lot of resilience and strength to start being who you really are. And then it starts to shape the environment around you to feel accepted to be who you are and to be met where you are and to feel seen as where you are and to be held where you are. So, there's there's so many parts to all of those.
As you were saying that, it's just an image of, the world expects you to be a certain someone, a certain something, and behave in certain ways. And you kind of just grow up doing that. Like, you're supposed to study, you're supposed to go to school, then you're supposed to work, and you just follow this flow of whatever society has kind of imposed on you. And then the turning point and this transformation that you're talking about is hard, because it literally requires you to, from within, reshape who you are, and then like enforce almost that shape that you are now with other people. And they're gonna have to move to adapt to your new like edges of who you are and the shape that you are now. And that's friction. That's friction, but ultimately it is worth it, because then at least you feel like yourself. Right?
Yeah. That's where we require the strength and resilience, right?
Yeah. Which you draw then, I imagine, because it just feels right. So it's the reaffirming steps. As you go closer and closer to that, you feel more and more and more in power, because you're aligned and you're authentic.
Yes.
And that gives power.
And that changes everything.
Yeah.
You have different experiences throughout your life.
Ben, if I asked you to share 3 important life lessons that you've picked up over the past years, what would they be? Really, really important ones.
Like, there are so many parts to this. The ones that come to me right now, maybe one that feels particularly relevant, I think, right now is, and it's so basic, so cliched, but I hope I can bring some depth to it, is just the practice of gratitude. With everything that we see going on in the world, there are some of us who are so fortunate to live in the way that we do, and yet we're still getting uptight and stressed and about, the smallest things. And without the practice of gratitude and being able to really like feel into our experience and to be able to see beyond the small things that we trigger us, we just keep ourselves stuck. We keep ourselves living small. So I'm really, really looking to continue to just, astound myself with how lucky I am every day. Without still continuing finding that balance, still continuing on my mission and seeking to continue to develop, and not just going, oh, I'm so lucky, I've got a room around me and someone's giving me some food. That's all I need. It's like, no, there's also a mission beyond that, but it starts with a base of gratitude. I really believe gratitude is an essential. And I'm reminding myself of this as I'm saying, I guess the next part, these are probably the basics 101, I'd say, but the next part would be just to continue to create separation and understanding of your thoughts, and understanding.
Separation of your identification with your thoughts.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean? With separation?
Well, just understanding that I'm not my thoughts, and my feelings, in fact, and having this understanding of something beyond that I feel sad doesn't mean I am a sad person. It's just a feeling that I'm experienced. Just like I had a thought that, I don't know, I want to do something inappropriate. That doesn't make me a bad person. It means that I've got a mind that's a bit confused in this distorted world that we live in, and that I am not that thought. It doesn't define who I am. So just understanding and going in deeper. And this is why I keep referring back to depth and truth, and I keep coming to all this, because my thoughts, my feelings are very available on the surface. They're very accessible. I get them pointed to my head. They're like bouncing around here, and it's like, if I live by those, which I did for 30 years, then my life will struggle to reach purpose. My life will struggle to reach a fulfilling way. So for many people, speaking from my experience, that's all we know that we are. We just think that we are that. And that was me for 30 years. I didn't realize there was something else really. Or there was, but I wouldn't really listen to it. And it was pretty distant to hear. So it's not really me.
Yeah, it's so interesting, because we always have this internal dialogue. We always have this chatter, right? And sometimes it's good, but for a lot of people, most of the times it's not. It's negative, and it's putting you down, and it's doubting, and it's fearful. And it's okay. Like, once you read about it a little bit, it's clear that it's just a survival mechanism. So you don't even hold the grudge against it, but you just catch it. And if you catch it, then you can just override it with, if the thought goes, oh, you suck, why are you even doing this? Then you're like, no, I don't suck. And I should be doing this because this and this and that. And maybe it sounds very obvious, but it's how simple it is. It's how obvious it really is. you override it. It doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to listen to your thoughts, let alone act on them, God forbid.
Yeah. But I think that does take a huge amount of work as well at the same time, because it's so foreign in the beginning. Now it's everywhere. We're not our thoughts. When I was 30 and someone said, "Do you know your thoughts?" I was like, come on. You know, like I didn't know, there was no other alternative.
Yeah.
And also I think that, you know, the deeper our traumas run, the more compelling our thoughts, our reactions are. And it's very hard to just, and I'm deeply conscious of being compassionate to the fortune and the experience that I've had, and the things that I've had to overcome are minimal in comparison to what some other people are. So I can't compare my trauma as like, I just had to let go of my thoughts, compared to someone else. It's like, sounds really easy when you say that. It's not so easy when I'm sitting here, given what I've been through. You know what I mean? And so I'm also
Do you think people abuse some? I mean, obviously, can't generalize case by case, but do you think oftentimes people hide behind the shields of their traumatic events as an excuse to not do the work?
I don't think they're hiding. I think that they're just still living out their trauma. That is a sign of it. And they haven't got to a place yet where they can see that their trauma is impacting them to the place where they can't even introspect in that capacity. I believe that everyone is doing the best from where they currently exist.
Yeah, that's very true.
I really believe that.
I also say that, you know, if you could have done better, you would have done better. By definition, if you did that, that was the best you could. You think you could have, but you couldn't, because otherwise you would have.
Yeah, at that point.
Yeah,
exactly. Now you know better.
Ben, as we wrap this up, I'll ask you my favorite question. And I know you said that you don't care about happiness, but most of the people do. That's what most people care about. They just want to be happy. So what would be your recipe for happiness, or in your case, it's fulfillment that you are after?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would. The recipe for happiness, I would say, is get an understanding of what happiness really means to you, and if there is something deeper than happiness. Because I really believe we can be happy one minute, and something outside of our existence can make us feel sad. So if it's happiness that